So I'd like to thank John personally. For anybody who's interested, I have temporary tattoos of that logo. Just come up and see me. So just out of curiosity, how many people here have seen the HBO series on called The Wire that's about Baltimore? Awesome. So those are some of the neighborhoods that we work in. And as tough as those neighborhoods are, we've really got a problem everywhere with the way that we deal with aggression and violence, because our courts and our schools really focus on punishment, and they don't give people a chance to learn how to behave differently. So how do we do this differently? That was The Wire. And this is Baltimore. So in Baltimore, for the past 12 years, we've been using something called community conferencing, giving people a way to resolve crimes and conflicts themselves in their own communities. I learned about this process from my colleagues in Australia, and they adapted it from the Maori in New Zealand. So I like to say it went from New Zealand to Australia to Baltimore in a straight line. And the way conferencing works is that we bring together everybody who's been affected by and involved in an incident, and that includes the victims and the offenders and their respective family members and supporters. And we ask them to talk about three things in this circle. First, everybody hears what happened from the person who did it. And it's not easy to sit in a circle and tell everybody step by step what you did. Then we ask everybody to share how they've been affected by what happened. And it is by design a very emotional process. As you can imagine, people come into this process feeling pretty difficult things. But as everybody gets a chance to speak and to hear each other, they begin to connect with each other in a very different and human way. And then we ask them, what do you want to do to make this better and to prevent this from happening again? And lo and behold, they become very interested in each other, and they come up with a written agreement. And a lot of times they really end up being satisfied with what they've come up with. Now, I'm sharing pictures of infants for a very specific reason, which I don't have time to get into, but it's about emotion, and it's about our biology, and it's why I think this can be so effective with any human being, no matter where we live on the planet. So let me give you a story just to give you a sense of how this works and a feel for it. Two kids were arrested for stealing a car in downtown Baltimore, and we were referred the case instead of going to court. So the kids come with their respective family members, and the guy whose car was stolen comes. It turns out that he lives in a DC suburb about 50 miles away. So he comes, and what he was really moved by in that conversation, one of the kids was being raised by his grandfather, who was a pastor. And he was so moved by both the firmness and the love that this grandfather was communicating with not only his grandson, but with the other kid as well. And what he said to his grandson was, you know, your grandmother and I did not expect to be raising children at this time in our lives, and it's not easy. And we didn't raise you to do things like this, and it's incredibly disappointing to us. And so the kids genuinely apologized, and what the man wanted to have happen also was that the kids would pay for his insurance deductible. So they said they would, but they didn't have any way to earn the money. So the grandfather agreed that he would hire them to work in his church so that they could pay it off. They figured it would take about 6 weeks for that to happen. But before they left the room, the grandson said, you know, I'm happy to raise this money, but I don't want to just give the money to the community conferencing facilitator and to give to you, because I want to shake your hand when I give you this money. And so the man agreed to come back to Baltimore, and the two young people had the money, and they shook his hand, and they all hugged. And before that man left the room, he donated the money to the grandfather's church. We know this stuff works. 8,000 people in Baltimore have safely and effectively resolved their crimes and conflicts using community conferencing. 95% of the conferences that we have result in people coming up with their own agreement, and they follow through with what they say they're going to do. And we're looking at 60% lower reoffending rates at 1/10 the cost of court. So this doesn't stop at Baltimore. We're working with great groups across Maryland and in other cities. And the question, a bigger question really is, what kind of society and world do we want to live in? One where we create our sense of safety and security this way or this way? Thank you.